listening to the House by the Video Store podcast.
There's no more room in hell. The dead will walk near.
We have such sights to show you.
I kick ass for the Lord.
Praise God!
Welcome to the House by Video Store podcast. I'm your host, William, and joining me today will be Derek.
Hello.
And Sean.
And I'm like here with you guys.
Yeah, we won't be cutting out today.
Yes, we are all in the same physical space with microphones all up on our grills versus using Skype or some other BS.
And you won't hear any animal noises in the background.
There's no cat
cats,
to knock everything off of the.
There's just airplanes by Bowman Field.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll be able to hear it though on these microphones, but yeah. So in this episode, we'll be reviewing the new movie Annabelle Creation, which just came out and was directed by David F. Sandberg, who also did Lights Out and somebody who I think is a better internet personality and presence.
Most notably that little short film that was on Facebook, which you probably know by now if you're listening to the podcast, but where basically you turn off the lights.
Or it was on YouTube.
Well, I saw it on Facebook.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah, I always saw it on Facebook. I think
I saw it on MySpace.
somebody stole it and ripped it off. But where you turn on the lights, nobody's there, and you turn them off and somebody's there.
Yeah.
And, it was that thing that launched the Lights Out film and all that.
Yeah.
And he posts behind the scenes videos and making of videos about how he's made the shorts and different movies he's worked on. So pretty cool stuff. But we're talking about the movie Annabelle Creation, which none of us saw the original Annabelle, right?
No.
We all saw The Conjuring 1 and The Conjuring 2. But we did not see Annabelle. And then similarly, last year there was Ouija Origin of Evil, which was the sequel to the first Ouija board movie. And it actually had one of the same actresses in that movie as in this movie.
Yeah, so
and both of those were movies that were sequels to movies that were gimmick movies.
And period pieces.
But these are prequels that are set in a different time period. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting.
Better than, well, I don't know about this one being better. Or the other one, but a lot of people have said both of those were better.
Well, too, so on Ouija Origin of Evil, they had Mike Flanagan direct it, who directed Hush and Oculus and a bunch of other movies. So theoretically, they got a more interesting filmmaker to work on the sequel than the original. And then for this one, for Annabelle, they got David F. Sandberg, who just came off of Lights Out, which is a huge success. And they announced he's going to be directing Shazam for Warner Brothers, one of the DC movies.
Wow.
They're just going to do the 1999 version of it.
No, not Kazam. Not Kazam.
No, just get Creed and everybody in there so they can all, like how Lights Out, everybody look like Avril Lavigne and Creed from the late 90s, early 2000s. That's what he's casting them
Shazam.
The Crow. They should direct The Crow. He'd be perfect for that.
Or Spawn.
Just get Sting from WCW.
No, Todd McFarlane's going to be directing Spawn.
Yeah.
With Blumhouse, right? So
with
maybe
Blumkenhouse.
Maybe you can co-direct it with him.
Yeah, so before we get into discussing Annabelle Creation, we'll go through recent news and things we've been watching. Some recent news. It's sounding like Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 3 may not come out till 2018 possibly, and could be the last season of the show based on some of the scuttlebutt and chatter that's out there around it. But the show has shot Season 3 and it wrapped, because I've seen pictures where I think it was Rob Tapert shared a picture of the last day wrap photo with the cast.
Yeah.
And crew. So it's coming out. No details on the release date. I know Bruce Campbell, when asked about it, was kind of maybe the end of this year, early next year. Didn't really know.
Yeah.
But,
and the scuttlebutt is somebody asking what can we expect in Season 3, and he said something along the lines of the final showdown. So, based on his cachet with that series and him being kind of the primary star, you would expect either it's the end of the series or the end of this story and plot line,
Yeah.
and maybe it'll go live on somewhere else, or maybe they'll do more seasons, but it sounds like this may be closing at least the story arc in some capacity.
They could finally do the Ash Mia crossover with Mia from the 2013 Evil Dead reboot remake, and then Ash, and they come together. And then I don't know what would happen because
sweet chin music, everybody, and then
yeah. So we'll have to wait and see if there's more details on that, because there's not been a trailer or anything released either. Because in previous seasons, by this point in the year, there had already been a trailer, which there hasn't been yet. So
normally at Comic-Con, don't they show off?
Yeah, because our website got broke a few years ago when the Ash vs. Evil Dead trailer first launched, because we had a site post drafted up that the second the trailer went on YouTube, we were going to drop the link in, post it. So the second the trailer dropped on YouTube, I was at home, so I copied the link into the post, hit publish, and tweeted a link of it, and then Bruce Campbell retweeted it for some reason, or whoever was managing his account. So everyone thought we had the exclusive trailer release or something. So then we were just getting our site bombarded with more traffic in that single day than it's ever had since.
And people were mad because our site was broke. But we expected to get like, okay,
A few hundred, maybe a few
100, yeah,
thousand.
200 views, but it was way more than that.
Bruce
Like
Campbell retweeted
within
it.
like an hour, there's like 50,000 plus views.
And I
this,
think Chad was drunk a little bit. He's the one that does
he was
like
out
the back
drinking
end.
with friends or something.
Yeah, he does the back end stuff on the site. So he was drunk at home trying to spin up more servers
Yeah.
and like buy some more server capacity and all this stuff.
And then, like, I'm sure whatever server was being used is like overheating,
Yeah.
and it was like a scene out of Silicon Valley if you watch that show. Yeah, so there's that. I know there's been discussion that James Cameron's going to be more involved in the Terminator franchise, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's coming back once again to be in that series again.
I will just keep giving that series chances over and over, especially when Schwarzenegger's in it.
Well,
Really.
you had the first two were brilliant, and then
Three was fun in high
Yeah,
school.
yeah,
like
three-
that
yeah,
was
in
I
the-
was
in that
cool. I
time
was like, it's
period.
been a long time
Yeah.
at that point. But now it's like been longer from 2 to 3 than 3 to now. Really, I
Yeah.
mean, of course they've made two other ones, but we don't have Schwarzenegger forever. So if he's going to be in a Terminator,
Let him
I'm
do
going to
it.
at least see it at some point.
I'll watch it because I mean him alone makes me because we've talked about him a lot, and for all of his downfalls, I mean anything he does he puts 110% into it. So he's
Yeah.
Even if he has a relatively limited range of what he can
Yeah.
pull off, if he's effectively used by a director and writer, then he can be very charismatic on screen and carry a movie.
Yeah.
But if you try to put him in a meaty leading man role, as they say, he
only
does
really
not.
worked once.
And what movie was that?
The one with I don't know, True Lies.
Oh, True Lies.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was also a James Cameron movie that
Yeah, but I'm
they
saying, but
wrote.
that- but
They
that
wrote
worked-
for him.
Yeah, but that worked really well for him.
It is because like when you see Arnold Schwarzenegger's an Everyman, it's like that doesn't work. He's not the Everyman. The Everyman is not like an Austrian bodybuilder. It's like when they put The Rock in these everyday everyman roles. It's like no, he's like huge. He is not. You cannot be a normal average guy and look like that.
What about Jingle All the Way? I think that was
Was like
Perfect casting.
yes.
That
Him
was, like,
him
one of the best movies
Him
ever
competing
made.
with Phil Hartman for somebody's affection or something. That's just a funny thing to think about. But
It's pretty good.
yeah, so there's that. So we'll have to wait and see more
Did you?
news
So
on
you guys did
Terminator.
not see the previous one?
I did not see Genesis with Daenerys from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and
Emilia
really,
Clarke.
her performance, I felt like left something to be desired in that movie. I think she's really good in the show, but I was a little disappointed because I already liked her from the show. I'd watched
Yeah.
it after I started watching Game of Thrones, and it had some good moments. They try to do like the throwback thing where it goes back to the 90s, so part of it takes place like during Terminator 2 or something.
Yeah,
And that stuff's cool.
Back to the Future doing it.
Yeah, just a little bit though, I think. But and there were some really cool moments in there, but yeah, it's a shame that like some of it felt so wasted on like kind of a good idea. But yeah, it wasn't stellar. It wasn't awful though, but it was one of those ones you can just watch if it's free somewhere. I think I watched it on Amazon Prime and was a fine hour and a half, 2
So-
hours.
Well, I also caught something where James Cameron asked Josh Brolin to be in one of the Avatar sequels. And he had to turn it down because of Deadpool or something that was going on. And then James Cameron was pissed because apparently if he ever asks you to be in something and you say no, then he'll never ask you ever again.
I saw like some news post like about like, oh, Josh Brolin like dishes on James Cameron or the Avatars, and I don't know if he was like talking smack. That's the way the article made it sound, but maybe he just said,
I think he was probably just
I don't
saying
have
he-
time for it or something.
Yeah, because I think they asked Matt Damon about Avatar for the first one. He said no or something, but
Well, like we've talked about Avatar before, it made a lot of money, but I don't think anybody's excited for a second one.
well, they're gonna make like 3 Avatar sequels back to back. So
Yeah, but nobody's like clamoring for that.
I haven't had a desire to ever revisit that.
No.
I thought it was fine at the time. 3D was awesome, but I will look at it again before the second one comes out because I will see the second one now
Just
that
watch
they've
Dances with Wolves.
now that they've got this story established. I feel like hopefully they're gonna kind of go off. You know what I mean? Now they're like, okay, we got a baseline. Hopefully it'll be like The Force Awakens, where it's like, okay, we got something kind of done now, and introduce you to this world, or introduce you to the world again in that one, and now they can kind of just do something more original with the story.
It'd
But
just be weird to do a sequel almost a decade later.
yeah.
So, other news: the Munsters is going to be rebooted by NBC, and it'll be taking place in Brooklyn. It looks like.
I was trying to look for info on that. I didn't know that. That's
And
interesting.
they've tried to reboot it before because Brian Fuller, that worked on Hannibal and Pushing Daisies and other stuff, was work. I think they shot a pilot of it, and it was called Mockingbird Lane, and it didn't end up getting picked up. And it's funny they're going back to that well again with the Munsters, just because like that's a series that when I was a kid I watched it a lot, like because it was Munsters and Addams Family kind of like were competing shows, and on Nick at Night the Munsters was the one that I watched, so that was the one I kind of liked more. But then I liked the Addams Family movie, the sequel not so much. When that came out,
Sequel was great.
well, the sequel, I mean, I haven't watched it since.
I love the
then.
sequel.
It's good. Some people like the sequel better.
Yeah, I love the sequel.
I just remember, like, I like the original Addams Family movie, and I like the pinball machines and stuff they had at pizza places.
Yeah.
And then
Those are always kinda
the
creepy.
sequel I saw, and it was maybe just like it was years later, I wasn't as into it.
We watched both those all the time somehow. You need to watch that
See.
sequel again. The,
Let's
Yeah,
see.
the original is on Netflix.
the Thanksgiving scene is awesome in that one.
Oh, so the Munsters in 2012, Mockingbird Lane, was ended up just being turned into a 1-hour Halloween special. And the reboot that they're trying to do would be a half-hour single-camera sitcom that follows members of an offbeat family who are determined to stay true to themselves but struggle to fit in hipster Brooklyn. So you'll have the Munsters dealing with hipsters in Brooklyn in a single-camera half-hour sitcom. So I would assume something more akin to like Modern Family or something of that nature, maybe.
Well, yeah, it could be. I'm thinking about like What We Do in the Shadows. If you had that crew like
Do that.
in creative control of that, how great that could be with the Munsters, in Brooklyn. Like that would be my ideal approach with it, and less of people talking to the camera all the time.
I'm kind of sad that Fall Out Boy made that dumb Uma Thurman song that had the Munsters theme in it. Because most people, when they hear the Munsters theme, think of Fall Out Boy now. At least people under the age of like 30.
Yeah, I was on a news story one day, and Morgan William,
Yeah.
and Derek, you know her too, right?
Yeah.
Morgan. We were like on some story, and we had an intern with us, and I was like, the radio was on a low volume because we were like paying attention to something else we were watching outside the car, and I was like, wait, is this the Munsters theme? And they're like, no, this is Fall Out Boy. And I was like, wait. And I turned it up. I'm like, no, this is the Munsters theme. And they made a song out of it. Yeah, everybody, hope to God they don't use that for the show intro.
I wouldn't think so because Uma Thurman probably won't be in it. So
What
wouldn't make any sense.
What Fall Out Boy? Oh, was it? Who did the Ghostbusters theme? Was that Fall Out Boy also?
I think so.
Yeah.
It was not good. Let's see. So then also some other brief news. Hannibal, the series, the season 3 finale ended a couple years ago, and apparently Brian Fuller, the showrunner, said that the talks have started again because they need to wait like 2 years for rights issues or something. So the talks have started back up to possibly get that show rolling again. So if you're a fan of it, hopefully there'll be more of it. And I know they discussed like maybe like 1 hour or like TV specials, kind of like Sherlock does, where you have like an hour and a half kind of like movie or like a one-off like limited number of episode series or something of that nature. So anything that could happen, I'd be interested in seeing because I really enjoyed that show. And it still surprised the hell out of me that show is on NBC because it showed more blood and guts. So me and Derek were talking earlier, Annabelle Creation is rated R. And when I watched it, I was like, I don't really know why this was rated R because there was more like graphic violence and gore and viscera and sex on Hannibal, which was on NBC, which is a broadcast network.
I wonder if we'll talk about more of that when we get to the movie. I just wonder if they just wanted to rate it
Or
R.
if it was like terrifying. Maybe like some of the scares were, maybe they thought they were too terrifying and too well executed. You know what I mean?
It's really dumb though that like they will give something an R rating for being terrifying, but like how do you even quantify that? Because I watched it and I was like, oh, there's we'll save it for the review, but people
were shitting their pants in the theater.
People sitting around me were very antsy when this movie got going.
They poop in their pants. Williams was so scary.
They were
antsy too.
So they had so I was made aware of this phenomenon called people called crinklers. So it's adults who like the sound of diapers. They wear adult diapers, and it's like a fetish thing. Because I read this story about this furry convention that went awry because crinklers were messing it all up, and then the crinklers started crapping themselves in the adult diapers, and then you could smell it, and then they put a bunch of adult diapers with poo on them all over people's cars. So
wait, what does this have to do with Annabelle?
It's a horror film in real life. Scarier than anything you'll see in any movie is the idea of a convention like that.
But like, wait, how did we get from
because
Annabelle
Derek said people are crapping themselves.
Oh, okay.
For the movie, it's so scary for its rated. Since
The movie would be very preferable for those who are crinklers because they can wear their diapers in case they.
This is the best movie. It has the best scares of every movie. Believe me, it's the scariest thing you're ever going to watch.
Okay, well, okay,
No, it's not.
No, but yeah. So don't go to conventions like that, or I guess do if that's your thing. But
America. You can do
don't
what you
poop,
want.
don't poop on yourself, please.
Again, it's America.
No one
They
should
do
poop
they
on
can.
themselves in public unless you're a child or you have incontinence.
Or if you're
incontinence.
elderly.
Yes, what I said. Like if you have incontinence and you can't control your bowel system, but
Or if you're just really mad at somebody.
So we've really gone down a rabbit hole here of this.
Speaking of that, I watched Wet Hot.
We can raise this back out. So is there any other news before you get into what we've been watching?
No, I just
Okay, so now
I'm
we can
excited
move
for the
in-
Munsters. I'm hopeful for it. I'm not expecting.
Well, it's NBC. They haven't really had a good show in a while.
Well, how
Yeah.
about they cast Dwight in every role?
Rainn Wilson.
no,
Yeah, every row. Sean.
No.
Every single row.
no.
They have John Krasinski that played Jim on The Office and Rainn Wilson that played Dwight on The Office play every role, male and female.
I would watch it.
That'd be weird. So now we can move into what we've been watching. And I know, Sean, you're mentioning Wet Hot American Summer 10 years later, which I
Yeah.
watched as well.
Yeah, I'd watched it before the last podcast we did, but forgot to mention it. Thoroughly enjoyed that. The movie's like one of my favorite comedies of all time.
And it had
yeah.
some kind of like horror thriller elements in this season.
Well, yeah, I really like that they kind of like lean into different genre films.
Because they kind of like mocked like The Hand That Rocks the Cradle and all those like 90s like thrillers with the nannies and stuff.
Yeah. And then that same, I mean, not too much of a spoiler, but like one of those, that same episode, like there's like multiple romantic comedy storylines coming
Yeah.
to a close. And it's just like one after another. Like I liked a lot about that season. Super enjoyed it. That's like one of the big things that I like, one of my top things on Netflix, like why I'm glad Netflix does stuff like that,
Yeah.
as far as like old revivals, like that's
Because you can tell the
tops for me.
budget wasn't super high, but like you can tell it was a ton of fun. And
Yeah.
So, and Derek, you'll enjoy this. So Bradley Cooper was in the original movie in the First Day of Camp series. For this one, he couldn't come back, so they just replaced him with Adam Scott, and they explained it away with a really goofy reason, and it was funny. So yeah, like if you enjoy that, if you enjoyed like First Day of Camp or the original movie, definitely check those out. Because that just shows like Netflix, like just imagine if they did a horror series like that was like a sleepaway camp-esque thing. You could have a lot of fun with that. Like we talked before about Friday the 13th, they can't get their act together to get a new movie made. Just make a Netflix series like that.
Well,
I mean,
they did that one that I watched a little bit of. Who did it? Freeform, maybe? I don't know what Freeform
oh
is.
yeah,
What was that called?
Who done it? How do you do that?
I'm
Because
forgetting
like
it.
Tony Todd was in it a little bit.
It was
like,
that summer camp one.
Yeah, it was a summer camp one that's set in the 80s. And it wasn't awful. It just, it felt more CW than you would maybe want. Like as far as just not a lot of... It felt very... I guess almost directed by the books and kind of just your typical format that just happened to
Because
be
it was
like horror.
the Freeform is the online streaming service spinoff of ABC Family, I believe. So it's in like the Pretty Little Liars, whatever other shows they have
Okay.
realm. So I think it's kind of in that mold. And then like Screen the TV series was kind of terrible and stuff like that. So, but if like Netflix gave like if they,
Yeah.
I mean, granted the rights stuff that's going on with the lawsuit with Friday the 13th, if they just let a Friday the 13th series get made that was like 8 episodes or a half hour apiece and it was kind of just like fun, that could be a huge deal.
Isn't Blumhouse doing some sort of TV deal with them, or am I wrong? I thought Blumhouse was dipping their foot into doing some sort of series.
Yeah, they're doing like that Western series or something about like scary stories from the Western era. So
And that's AMC? Or
yeah,
is that,
I think it's AMC.
Yeah.
So Blumhouse is getting their toes tipped in. So like, but like something like Friday the 13th is a big name brand, and at this point, it's not really straightforward scary. And I think you'd have a lot of fun if you just went in the direction of making like a slasher like comedy that made fun of tropes. Granted, I mean it's already been done a lot by stuff like The Final Girls or Cabin in the Woods or a bunch of other movies. But like if the series like that could be something that was huge and wouldn't cost a ton of money to make, because Wet Hot American Summer, like the names they had in it were huge in terms of people they got in, like Chris Pine, like all these different people that were in these big profile movies. And they somehow managed to schedule them all, but the actual production budget, I'm assuming for sets and everything, couldn't have been that much.
Yeah, and that's the success of that series. It's the writing, the directing, and the cast is like the cast as far as comedic.
They have Paul Rudd and Chris Pine,
yeah,
and
tops.
Elizabeth Banks and all these other big time people. So yeah, you can check that out. It's on Netflix. Both Wet Hot American Summer, First Day of Camp, and 10 Years Later. The movie's not on there.
The movie's
anymore.
on Stars if you don't own a copy, which you should.
Or you can just buy the copy and watch it. So did you watch anything else?
Yeah, I watched Twilight Zone movie.
The one where it killed some kid.
Yeah. That's I think that's kind of why I've held off watching that again for a while. I
Because you know
watched
the
it when
real
I was a
life history
kid.
behind it.
Yeah. But I watched that when I was younger, and I haven't watched it in years. Have you guys seen that lately?
I have not watched it recently.
Have you seen it, Derek? Twilight Zone movie?
I mean, I've seen it a long time.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. Like, I forgot the cast that was in that film. A lot of people are only in there for a moment, but
It was a big deal when it came out.
yeah, Dan Aykroyd and Albert Brooks are like in the opening scene. That's like John Landis directed it, so it's a little bit like the opening to American Werewolf in London, where they're singing like Midnight Special and kind of just having fun. But John Landis, like, some of the stories are obviously better than others. John Landis, like the second segment, which is like after the prologue, his is basically about a guy who goes into a bar and is mad because this Jewish guy got a job over him. So he's ranting and raving and ranting about the people living in his neighborhood, because there's black people living there. And,
So is this like
all
a
this
current
stuff.
day-
So it's very dated. That's what I'm saying. It's really like, this
That would
movie
never
is
happen in
so
real life.
dated. So that's unfortunate. And then essentially he gets kicked out of the bar, or he leaves the bar, and then he like, as soon as he goes out the door, he ends up in Nazi Germany and he's seen as a Jewish person, and then it goes from there. So yeah, like I said, very dated, not topical at all.
Yeah.
So
Nobody
like, it
acts
may be
like
a
that
hard
in
watch to
today.
figure out, like, you put your head in that mind space that somebody would be like that. But yeah, I mean, that one's like it's a weird blend, because that one is maybe, it's obvious where it's going. As soon as it starts, you're like, oh, this is the point of this. And then you kind of know the point, and then Spielberg does the next one, and his is like almost more of just a sweeter story. And it's really nothing like bad or sinister. It's almost like out of place in some ways, but I liked it a lot. His is essentially about a nursing home and Scatman Crothers from The Shining.
Shining.
Yeah, and then some other like notable older actors of that era that you would notice are also in that. And then I'm trying to think, and then was Joe Dante's segment, which was stellar, and that's the other ones may be remakes of original segments. That one is, and that's where the kid basically can like wish anything he wants, so his family's afraid of him. That one's pretty cool, and Joe Dante kind of plays with almost making the house feel like a cartoon, because the kid like loves cartoons. So I was like, oh, maybe this is why they gave him Looney Tunes back in action. Like, there's like a real life like Tasmanian Devil almost.
Looney Tunes.
That one's pretty fun. I feel like it should have been. I think I like the original Twilight Zone TV show segment more, because I remember it being very memorable as a kid.
Yeah.
And I remember this, but not as much. And then the last one is directed by George Miller of Mad Max fame, and that's the John Lithgow airplane one, where you see something on the wing.
The terror
which has
at
been,
20,000 feet or whatever.
Yeah. They made the Treehouse of Terror.
Yeah,
on
The
the school
Simpsons.
bus. I love that as a kid, because I had seen that episode of Twilight Zone by that time. And that's probably my favorite segment in there, is the George Miller one.
Yeah.
John Lithgow is like an amazing actor, and it kind of just, the whole one is centered around him like freaking out, and that's just entertaining to watch. Yeah, I liked it quite a bit, but yeah, I mean, really, a couple of the segments are like not ones you'd want to rewatch a lot. Really, the last two I think they're kind of the best ones. Spielberg one is really good, but like I said, it's more of a fantasy drama thing,
Yeah.
where it's like, those aren't as immediately rewatchable as, say, like horror films or comedy films or something like that. But yeah, I liked it quite a bit. Not a bad film. I think it could be made again, and you could
Yeah.
get some really interesting directors on board for that. And the thing I like about Twilight Zone too is like doing something that's almost like heavy-handed in some ways, or like it's almost like a gimmick on some of the episodes, where it's like, oh wait, this whole thing is constructed just to drive home this little point. And nowadays, if you were to do that too much, it would seem, I don't know, almost I don't want to say lazy, but
Well,
not exciting.
You'd also have cries of like, "Oh, you're a social justice warrior.
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
pushing this BS down our throats."
Yeah, but I mean, like, as far as just like narratively, like, oh, okay, well, we get it. You're making this point, but
You
like
filter the
Twilight,
entire episode down to one very specific point.
but Twilight Zone is a brand, and you know what I mean. You know what you're getting, so I
Yeah.
feel like they could do that over and over again, and they're the series to do those types of stories.
Like with our generation, even our generation doesn't necessarily remember the Twilight Zone to the same extent that it was known in the generation prior to us. And I think like right now you have like Black Mirror that's kind of being popular in terms of pushing like social stories that are around technology and stuff like that. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they were to approach like another big anthology that has like the blockbuster directors like they had for Twilight Zone the movie. I'm not sure if they could do. I'm not sure how much cachet the Twilight Zone has still.
Get it to do with Eli Roth, Paul S. Anderson,
Paul W.S. Anderson.
whatever. He doesn't deserve to get his name right. And then who's two other?
Rob Zombie.
Rob
and,
Zombie.
Wait, no, wait. The guy that directed House of the Dead and
Oh, Uwe Boll.
Bring him out of return.
No, but see, like Uwe Boll, though, nobody with a straight face thinks his stuff is good. I would not think. But like,
I think some people like some of his films. Some people do.
But like, if you had like Eli Roth, Rob Zombie, Paul W.S. Anderson, and who's somebody else that's kind of controversial director that I'm trying to think off the top of my head. We have to waste time on that, but just like a movie like that made today with them would go over some way. But yeah,
the director of Jeepers Creepers.
Oh God, yeah.
But like, so yeah, if the studio was putting this out there and they were trying to like, oh, how much money can we spend to do an anthology film? Is that going to sell? Can we get these directors? I could see that being a
But the
hard
funny
sell.
thing is, like, I think Twilight Zone the movie, if I remember correctly, is either like the number 1 or number 2 grossing horror anthology, and even it did not make a lot of money.
But
comparatively,
I think the way you could get the directors on board for not paying a lot of money for each one is basically if a director got behind this project and like spearheaded it, was like, hey, I want to make a Twilight Zone movie. I'm going to get my friends to direct this. You know what I mean? Like if it was, if Spielberg wanted to do it again or somebody, like if then they could convince their friends to do it for a certain budget and just kind of do it to get it done.
Because it made $29 million. So with all the blockbuster talent attached and the names that people are aware of, it still didn't even break $30 million. Granted, this was released in the 80s. I'm trying to see. I just know that the horror anthology genre as a whole hasn't been a huge grossing genre. I mean, there have been ones that made money and definitely are profitable over time, like Creepshow and things like that.
Well, maybe Netflix just puts it together.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
then they don't have to
Netflix
worry
could.
about box office, and they can just put another movie onto that $2 billion debt they have growing right now.
Yeah. So was that all the things you watched?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Twin Peaks as always, and I watched some more of the old series again because I'm like just waiting for Sunday every week for the new episode.
So Derek, did you watch anything this week?
Well, the one movie I'm talking about is something I watched last week, but I wasn't on the podcast, so I didn't get to talk about it. I saw Atomic Blonde. Has anybody else seen that yet?
Nope.
Back.
That's probably my favorite movie of the year, tied with like Logan. I mean, it was. I didn't watch much about it and see many previews.
What about Get Out? You said Get Out was your favorite film in a long time.
I think I'd take this over Get Out because to me, it's like Get Out is one of those movies like you watch it once, it's a great one-time experience. I haven't watched it again. But the Atomic
So you're just talking out of your ass.
No.
Yeah, I watched it a couple of times.
But
It holds up really well.
There's just certain stuff in Atomic Blonde that like
You wanna
there's
see
certain
again.
fight scenes in it that you're just.
Well, you didn't
could
see
watch
John
them.
Wick Chapter 2, did you?
Yeah, you didn't see John.
No, but
Because the director of one of the co-directors of the first John Wick directed Atomic Blonde.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I
David
think
Leitch.
And then was it Charlize Theron and Keanu Reeves even trained together some while they were
Yeah.
prepping to shoot Chapter 2 and Atomic Blonde.
Yeah.
Which shows, I think, at least I haven't seen the movie just in the trailers. It looks like it's more naturalistic, real fighting style versus like
like people actually
some judo chop
like
BS.
you take the Marvel hallway fight scene and you actually do a good version of it, and this is what this.
So the ones they do in all their Netflix series, like
but
Daredevil
it's
and Luke
actually good
Cage,
because
and-
people actually get tired and it's realistic and people are beat up and there's actually if you really got in a fight it would look like that.
Yeah.
But the soundtrack was awesome in it. The cinematography was awesome in it. If you don't like 80s music, you're probably not gonna like the soundtrack. But I love like the color grade. I loved everything about it. And I wasn't expecting it.
How's the story? I mean, that's what I've heard the complaints are, is like the story. That's everybody's like, just because of that element of it.
Well, I did not know it was a spy. Like I said, I literally do nothing other than Charlize Theron was fighting people. And that's all I knew, and I went and watched it. And it's a spy movie. So most of the people that I've listened to who complain about the spy elements also like James Bond movies or 007 movies. And it's like, well, this is actually more of a spy film.
Was it easy to follow? Because I've heard conflicting things. I've heard some people say it's a super simple plot. How could you be lost? And somebody's like, no, actually, I got confused in it.
Well,
Like, I don't know.
Without doing spoilers, if you watch Civil War and you could follow Scarlett Johansson's character thread through that movie, you should be able to follow this. Because it's, it's hers a little bit more convoluted, I'm saying, but just the general, like, if you can follow that character, then you can easily follow Atomic Blonde.
Yeah.
Because it's just any general spy movie. You can watch any 007 movie and follow it. It's nothing that you haven't seen before. It's kind of cool to see a female character get to do that.
Yeah.
Actually do realistic fighting. And it's not like a lot of these movies where she's, like, punching 400-pound guys out the hit. Like, it's got a little bit of the stuff.
Well, it's not like Miss and Miss Smith, Mr. and Miss Smith, or Angelina Jolie's just like judo chopping dudes twice her size and knocking
it's
them
not
out.
like that. It's kind of cool because it has a little bit of the Jackie Chan stuff where you're just grabbing stuff around your area and knocking people out with it. And it was just, I really liked all the grittiness to it. But I would like to see more movies like that because, like a lot of these big budget Hollywood films, all the fight scenes are like kind of janky and not that good.
I mean, sometimes they even have like second unit directors do some of the fight scenes. You know what I mean? Like they're just kind of, okay, now we've got to get this done.
Well, they have like a stunt choreographer in like second unit, and they don't pay as much attention to them because it's all just like multiple cut garbage.
It depends on, I think, what the director, like, what does he want to do? Does he want to tell a story?
And they don't do a whole lot of cuts on the fight scenes. Like a lot of the fight scenes are they claim they're shot in one take.
Well, a lot of times they hide cuts.
Even if they
scenes.
feel like it, then that's better than just
but like when you're sitting there watching, it's not Taken 3 where he jumps the fence and they do 18 different cuts.
So like a good example of that is something like some of the Marvel stuff on the show Iron Fist on the Netflix series from Marvel. There was a scene where he like was fighting somebody like in an evidence room, and there were like 15 cuts to achieve like a basic action scene because just I think that the actor didn't have proper fight choreography or didn't have enough training.
Basically they had no time to train.
So like there's stuff like that where it's just like fight scenes have a bunch of cuts and it's all just hyperkinetic because they had to just cut it 15 times because none of it looks good when you play it out. It looks terrible. As opposed to this sounds like more realistic fight choreography and it looks like how it would really play out.
I think if you watch this movie too, there's certain movies you can watch and see this because Charlize Theron's been wanting to get this movie apparently made for a long time. And from what I understand, what got it greenlit was when she did Fury Road. Once they saw her in that kind of laid the groundwork because they saw that she could actually be a lead action character, so they let her do this movie.
And this one, she's got 2 arms, right?
Yeah, she got 2 arms in this one. So you can tell there's a lot of passion on her end as far as the fight scenes go. She did almost everything on her own.
Yeah.
Which I think that makes those movies so much better because it kind of harkens back to like I love Jackie Chan, and a lot of times he did all of his own stuff. So
that's what was great about John Wick. Those directors like know the importance of that to
they also
sell
were stuntmen themselves. So like David Leitch is I'm probably saying his name wrong, but he's also directing Deadpool 2. So seeing him do this gives me a lot of faith in what Deadpool 2 can be because it's like, well, this was a really awesome action-oriented movie.
Well, and too, in Deadpool, you have the mask on the character, so they can get away with getting better stuntmen that have more training. I'm sure Ryan Reynolds does a lot of stuff himself too.
Yeah.
But when you have a character that's face is covered, then you can do way more on the stunts and the fighting because you don't have to.
They didn't really cover Charlize Theron up at all. I mean, a lot of it you could tell was her, and she did a pretty awesome
which
job.
I really appreciate and like, and I hope I hope they do that no matter what like technology they have to not do
Graft
that. Just because like they did the thing from Logan where he's like driving in the car, and did you see where they graphed his face on that? And you know what I mean? Like they can do basically whatever, but
it's not
they can
Face Off where you have Nick Cage, somebody obvious stuntman.
They just open up Snapchat and use face swap to fix the movie.
Yeah, I really want to see that. The only reason I haven't is because we went out of town that one weekend, and then I got like backed up on film, so I saw like Dunkirk. And she wants to see this movie because, I think because it is Charlize Theron. Yeah. So my wife's more interested in seeing it. So we just haven't because we saw Dunkirk and then Detroit. And then this week was Annabelle, which I saw this by myself. But I do want to get around to that before it gets out of theaters. Again, it's hard because there's so many things out.
I would say there's been a lot of good movies this year, probably more than last year. But
absolutely.
Me and Courtney went to go see it, and she kind of eye rolled about it. at first, then she came out and that's her favorite movie of the year.
So
You know,
so we'll all need to watch that by the end of the year, just be able to talk
Oh
about
yeah,
it.
I'm definitely gonna see it when it comes out. If I don't see it,
Like
before
I
it
would
leaves
probably
theaters.
give it. Not that I'm gonna throw a rating
Yeah.
on it. I would give it probably like a 9.5. Like I know you all might watch it. It's not perfect, like I said. And even with Logan,
You need to see John Wick too.
Yeah, 'cause
I
like-
need to
that'll be
watch
a
John Wick
good.
too.
Because I think like all the John Wick movies and that sound like same wheelhouse, and just would
Same
be a
sort
great
of appeal to a certain degree.
a great like double bill and be able to have stuff like that. So it's good that we get this like medium budgeted action film that comes out that's much more on. So like the John Wick films where it was almost every single muzzle flash fake and like blood splatter was fake. I don't know. I didn't really watch the behind the scenes stuff.
I think
To me,
so.
it's very easy to tell when it's
Yeah.
all fake blood splatter.
I think they were because that way they could do more takes. Unless I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of David Fincher, how he uses all fake blood splatter.
Yeah.
He uses all CGI, which it looks really good in his films.
sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, like
Sometimes.
Zodiac looked really good. Not everyone's perfect, but that was from 2007. You know what I mean? Like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. That looks awesome when all the blood's pouring out and stuff.
Let's see. So
I want to see that.
So Derek gave that high score. In terms of me, the only thing I've watched that wasn't mentioned so far was the Netflix series Ozark that has Jason Bateman in it. And the thing I'll describe this, because I heard other people say something similar, it kind of feels like Breaking Bad if you started in season 4. So once the kind of stuff's already hit the fan. So it's pretty much Jason Bateman is a money launderer for the cartel, and due to threats on his family, they have to move to the Ozarks in like Missouri and like that area, and has to kind of try to wash money in this kind of backwoods town and work through stuff like that. So far I've
So
enjoyed
it explains what money laundering is then. I mean, I know what it is now.
Yeah.
But like, when Office Space came out, I had no idea what it was either. When they're trying to figure out what it is, they asked
Yeah, it's
Orlando
a lot of
Jones,
like cleaning
what is
money.
money laundering?
So far, like I haven't finished the series yet, so I'll have to come back once I finish it. But so far, I'm enjoying it quite a bit, and it's got a very dark tone. And
This is totally irrelevant to the storytelling and everything, but I saw a big thing, and I wanted to watch a show because I guess, when you're shooting something, you a lot of times color balance for the lighting and everything. And
Yeah.
if it's indoor lighting, typically it's like 3200 K, and if it's outdoor, it's 5600K. They shot everything at 4400K, I guess, to give it that blue look.
yeah, because it does have a very distinctive visual.
Yeah, and
palette.
I was reading something like on a Facebook group I'm in with like DPs and cinematographers, and some of them were like, it kind of grated on me for a while. I kind of, got tired of the look, and it ended up not being appealing at all. Some people really liked it. Like, how did you feel about the look? Did it like bother you at all?
I mean, it's all in that kind of bluish, greenish hue, and like I said, I haven't finished the show, but I mean, like it fits the kind of like downbeat nature of the show.
Yeah.
Because if you had like oversaturated, like warm 80s-ish colors and stuff, it wouldn't really work.
Yeah.
So far it hasn't bothered me. I just have noticed that it's very like very specific colors, because some other shows kind of go with a lack of color grading or a very desaturated look.
Yeah.
And this is, a very different direction. So far I think it worked, and I haven't really had any issues with it. But
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm going to check it out. I want to check it out at least just for that, but then I like Jason Bateman, and I, knew it was kind of more of a serious crime show.
we can come back to it once I finished it or once somebody else watches it. But that was all I watched, aside from the stuff we've mentioned. So now I can move into our review of Annabelle Creation. And it's
my creation.
it was directed by David Ann Sandberg, who did Lights Out and other stuff, as we mentioned before. And then it was surprising to me because I was watching it. I didn't really watch too much of the promotional material for it, just because I saw like one of the like 30-second like trailer things they showed like months ago. And I was like, oh, the girl in this looks very familiar. The actress Lulu Wilson. It's like, oh, she was in Ouija Origin of Evil. So it's like, could they not get a different actress to use in these like sequel prequels to spin-off franchises that were kind of gimmicky?
She was good though in both of these, I think.
No, she was good, but it was very like once I realized it, it was very distracting.
I kind of like that Blumhouse though, like is like throwing her a bone. You know
Well,
what I
this
mean?
isn't
Like,
Blumhouse. This
it's
is
not?
Warner Brothers.
Oh,
Because this is a spinoff
yeah, this
of
is Wan, yeah.
This is this is
Conjuring,
James
yeah.
Wan, so it's spinoff of like all the Conjuring films.
I mean,
and then,
I knew that, but like my mind, this just felt like a stock Blumhouse film.
So we will-
because those Conjuring.
Yeah, I
films.
kinda
we
thought
will
that was-
I totally
we will
forgot.
avoid spoilers until the end. We'll go through spoiler discussion. But this movie, just to start out with,
Sorry.
with what's going on. Like, from my opinion, I think that the thing that like this and Lights Out both have shown as a director, he's very good at like setting up set pieces and having like effective scare moments and stuff like within the structure of like the movie. Because this did have some very effective scenes, and the people in the theater that were around me were very into it and very affected by it. I mean,
my screening was packed. I went after you did on Thursday night. I went at like the 10 something.
Yeah, I went
and
at
it was
the 7
almost
p.m.
sold
screening.
out. Was yours?
It was like half full. And two, like just looking at the box office numbers, we're recording this on Saturday, August 12th, because that's the timing that worked out for us. The box office expectations are for it to make around $35 million for the weekend. And for a horror film, that's really solid because that's making back your budget plus some in the first week. And that just, bodes well for like something like It. So before this movie ran for It, did everybody's screening there's a 4-minute preview for It that was kind of like the gutter scene with Pennywise. And people in the theater sitting around me were actually getting scared by just that.
Yeah, I heard a lot of noises like, ugh. But
So-
like, I just looked at my phone and put my head down because
I didn't want to see it. I mean, like, granted, I actually watched it. Didn't really spoil anything.
I
but
watched it like 20 million times as a kid, so I don't know how you all didn't. But it's like I've already seen it.
Well, I've
It's like
seen
one of
that
those things,
scene
like,
so many
I've seen
times.
this scene so many times, so it didn't ruin it for me. Because I already
I didn't know
what
they were
happened.
showing this scene anyway. Like, I just, as soon as it started, when Stephen King came on, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. There's going to be a 4-minute look.
So
I just put my head down. I was afraid they were going to show like
Story
a good
beats.
scare scene, or a big story.
So mostly it just showed you an element that if you've seen the original, you're aware of. And I think what it really
Probably
did,
one of the most iconic scenes.
it just showed you that, okay, the guy they got playing Pennywise,
gonna be good.
Skarsgård, played it pretty well. So there's not much to be concerned about there.
Yeah, he was also in Atomic Blonde.
So I think that with Annabelle Creation, look like it's going to be a big hit. I think it's going to be absolutely huge.
Yeah.
And but back to Annabelle, because that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, it looked better.
But we're going back to Annabelle. Like you basically just the basic premise is you start off with a doll maker and his wife.
The premise is they saw Chucky,
so
and they heard about the Warrens or whatever.
Well, actually, they saw Chucky, and then like, you know what? We're just gonna get the guy that directed Lights Out and do Lights Out .2.
So
not have Chucky.
the movie starts out with a doll maker and his wife. Their daughter dies in a tragic accident. And then you jump forward like a few years into the future, and some orphans that the orphanage didn't have space for them or whatever come to live at their house because him and his now bedridden, sickly wife want to make amends for something and allow an orphanage of young girls to come live in the house. And there's like a nun and a number of young girls that range in age from like teenagers to, I guess the youngest girl's supposed to be around like 10 or somewhere in that range. So you have like a range of like ages of girls. And they live in this house. And of course there's the Annabelle doll that causes creepy things to happen. And there's evil spirits and things like that. So that's basically what you can expect out of the movie. And it's like a period piece that's set in, did it say what the date was?
I'm gonna assume
Set like in the 50s or 60s.
well, because it
Yeah.
ends somewhere in the 70s. So
Yeah.
I would say that it starts off in the 50s, and then the main part of the movie is like
That's
in
kind
the
of
60s.
a spoiler a little bit.
And not really.
Yeah.
I mean, it just spans 2
So
decades.
like basically there's also a like mid credits stinger scene.
Oh, I didn't say.
And a final credits went after the credits.
Oh, I didn't realize
I
that.
looked it up online and stayed.
As soon as it was out, like I just
So
Well,
just
we'll
so you
save
know, it
it.
has that. We can talk about it.
We'll
when we
save
get
it for
to
the spoilers,
Yeah,
but
there you go, talk
so you have that stuff, and the movie, like the performances across the board, are for this type of movie, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Like none of them are bad, none of them stuck out. They all like it wasn't schlocky, terrible horror acting that you see from some stuff. It was all pretty solid across the board. The visuals, like it all looked pretty good. I mean, it mostly took place at one location, which is how you would assume they kept the cost down because it's mostly set at this one house and like the surrounding area. And it's a period piece, so there's not a lot of technology or anything around. There's like TV. So I figured the TV
TV's
alone,
broken, though.
the TV didn't work. So I figured it's probably set like in the 60s era, something like that, maybe the 70s. Kind of hard to tell.
Well, I would say the 50s because of the way they acted.
I think
But
it may have started out in the 50s because it was 12 years later. I think it probably started out in the 50s.
I think.
Yeah.
I think.
Well,
maybe
regardless,
40s.
it's not set in present day, and it's not super important what year it is. It's just that it's not the present. And there's a lot of stuff in the
The
movie.
year 2053.
There's a lot of stuff going on in it. Like there's some effective set pieces. Like I said, the acting's really good. So I guess I can just go through about. So Derek, what was your takeaway?
Well, we've talked about movies before that are centered mainly around children, which this movie was. And I think, again, this was like a really effective movie based around kids. Like, none of them were annoying. The two main girls. Like, None of they both did, I think, pretty good jobs. I think the girl that had polio in the movie, I think, did a better job because it was obviously the main character. And I think it's really hard sometimes to make movies effective around children, especially in horror elements.
You mean when the performances are centered around them,
and it's like,
and this is a big group of girls, and they all did a really good job.
Yeah, I think they did. It made it believable. I think the sets worked really well. I will say the one thing that the Lights Out guy's good at doing is nighttime stuff. Like he's got that, because those are actually moments that
when the lights are out.
When the lights are out, he is on. Yeah, I mean, he is very good at it, using the shadows the right way, using the noises, like everything works.
And the movie was dark without being dark to the point you couldn't see anything.
Yeah. That's one thing I like about it too. You actually could tell what was going on.
It felt like night.
Yeah, it felt like night. But there's just some issues ahead of the movie, and it's really hard to say my issues without spoiling it.
Yeah.
But I will say that every scare in the movie that I remember was earned. There was no jumped out cats, no friend scared.
Yeah, no fake out jump scares.
Like every single thing in the movie that was a scare was legitimate, and I think that is really good because a lot of times you have movies, we've talked about this before, sometimes the best scares in the movie are just like a cat or a dog.
Yeah, like the Poltergeist remake, the number one scare was a squirrel.
Yeah. And this movie did not have that. Everything in it was earned. I just maybe have to wait till the spoilers to say some of my biggest issues with it. But I do think it would have been a little bit better if they'd fleshed out the parent characters in the movie, because they didn't really. It was just kind of odd whenever they were on screen.
Well, you kind of have the time jump of a number of years, and they kind of go from being like one type. So their relationship and all that stuff seems to be in one space, and then you jump forward to the future, and based on what you saw that happened, you know why their relationship changed, but you don't really know what, and you get a little bit of backstory on it, like later on in the movie. But like having that a little bit more grounded and showing more of them interacting and having a little bit more, giving you more empathy for them in their situation.
I was thinking about
empathy for them.
I was thinking for me, so it centers around little girls that arrive at this house, and then it goes from there. For me, after I watched part of the movies, I was thinking like I would actually prefer this if I saw it from the other direction, and it was from the perspective of the parents, the adults. Yeah. And I was thinking I would enjoy that more. I'd be more engaged with it. But honestly, like for the audience they're trying to get, this is probably the direction they want it to go, because you kind of just jump right into it. After you get an initial setup, the kids jump right in the situation. For me, it felt, were you done kind of with a lot of your points?
Yeah.
I mean, you can jump in.
Yeah, I'll interject if I hear something.
But so I was watching this and I'm like, it didn't really grab me a lot on any of the levels than just building up some awesome jump scares. Yeah. And the audience was loving that. And for me, I like a couple of times I kind of jumped. Honestly, also too, full disclosure, I was dozing off a little bit. Not really because of the movie. I was kind of tired. But also I wasn't like on the edge of my seat or anything. It was only like a couple little moments. Like once or twice I remember like people screaming and then me waking up.
Well, too, it's like a lot of times, like to me, the scares in the movie did what comedy does a lot. Because like I'll watch a comedy, it's like I appreciate that joke, it was well done, and I liked it, but I didn't laugh. Yeah. And this movie, I was like, that's a well done scare. I didn't jump, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, they didn't bust any new stuff out. Like, I didn't watch this movie and be like, holy crap! I didn't. Everything in this was stuff that we've already experienced. Especially because if you remember, like when I was in high school, which like from 2004 to 2008, a lot of movies similar stuff came out in this area. So you had like The Haunting in Connecticut.
I feel like the others did a lot of good things, and this film kind of felt like that. I don't know if it was the era or what.
Yeah, but just there was that. Yeah. So like a lot of this stuff is not new to me. So it's like
and
I've
like
seen
the Orphanage and a lot of stuff from the mid 2000s.
We've had all the Conjuring universe stuff too. So and all the Blumhouse stuff with Insidious and all this stuff. So all of it kind of.
Well, and there's like a demonic creature that bears a little bit of resemblance to like one of the creatures from the first Insidious films.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Whatever Pitch Black or whatever the movie he
Lights Out.
yeah
Pitch Black with Vin Diesel.
It's the same stuff.
Yeah, like for me it was, and a lot of the jump scares, like this is minor spoilers, but you get a lot of those scares. There's a whole lot of them in there actually, and they're all well done. But at a certain point through the beginning part of the movie, I was like, okay, I'm kind of done with the jump scares because stuff keeps happening and there's no consequences. Like it's just people. It's like people go and then we go to the next scene and then and I was like, all right, this is not like I'm not jumping at this. The audience is loving it, but it's not like it's
while they were earned, they didn't really take the story anywhere.
Well, I think
they didn't progress the plot.
It wasn't worth it to to make a better film for me as the type of viewer I am. Like I think I'm realizing these types of films just aren't for me. You know what I mean? Like it's a different audience, I think.
Well, I think my biggest issue with a lot of these scares is like they have this really awesome set piece or they're building up, stuff in the night for 10, 15 minutes, boom, scare daytime. Over.
Yes,
no sense of danger from that.
So
that was my biggest issue.
That was kind of this. They would scare next
scare
scene.
daytime.
And it would just scare a lot of times.
So basically, to kind of piggyback on that, so there is kind of like the scares that happen just to like audience participation and get people all like ramped up and ready, and then like a switch flips and then stuff starts happening. And then there's consequences, and it's like, what was the differentiation in between? Like, I guess they're like, when we get to spoilers, we'll discuss some more, but like, it feels like there's like a lot of scares that are more just like there to excite you and to kind of take you like on a haunted house tour.
This felt like a haunted house.
And then,
that's what
I thought it felt like a ride too.
Yeah.
Like literally there's one moment that feels like a haunted house ride for some of the characters. And I was like, this is what this feels like.
So then you have the moment where it's like, okay, you're at a haunted house and then you get to a certain room and now they can start touching you.
Yes.
And then by that, I mean, they can kill the characters or do other things. So there's a certain point in that. But like I said, like the audience that I was with seemed to be digging it. And like I said, I wasn't like I was sitting there like curmudgeon, like, oh my god, I hate this. It was just like,
it's not like it was awful performances or awful. Nothing was like egregious about it or offensive.
I will say, when we get to spoilers, there is one moment in the movie. As soon as it happened, I was done with it. I'm like, all right, I'm done with this movie.
The overall thing is like,
scared you that much?
It was just rehashed.
It had you crinkling.
Yeah.
But like a lot of the movies, like it was very like I think there's been a lot of horror movies in recent years where you have like very effective execution of set pieces without like a story that really draws you in around it.
Yeah,
and then there's the opposite of good stories with terrible execution on scares and what have you. I think this is like good execution. The story's kind of middling, but
this for me, and I don't want to diminish his ability. Like, his ability to create an effective scare is top notch. He's really good at that.
He's really good at that.
Watching this film, I felt like, okay, this feels like a Friday the 13th film, how those films were. There's not much there, and the audience goes just for these moments of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, ooh, these moments of excitement. And granted, in those films, a lot of times it was a little bit of tension, and then, maybe a gore scene or something like that. Now it's this, but with the jump scares, and that's what people are into.
Yeah.
Or not jump scares, but like effectively set up, scare moments, and that's what people are into now. At least a lot of the modern audiences.
So let's see. The writer of this, the writer Gary Dauberman, also wrote the first Annabelle, is writing The Nun, and has written a few other things. Swamp Devil?
It feels like David S. Sandberg. He's very much just like the John Wick directors. Their thing is action, and they do that very well. His thing is scares. Like, I don't want to diminish, directors and say, well, you should just be doing this or whatever. But it almost feels like if they really wanted to like churn out these films, they would combine, him with another director and have, you know what I mean? It's hard to do that, but like a lot of this is a business, and it almost feels like at this point, this is like the Marvel films or something, where it's like, okay, I keep getting these same types of films. I know the score. They're executed. He does this one very well as far as the scares, but they're executed in kind of the same way. They have the same feel, and I'm just seeing the same films over and over. Just like with Ouija last year. Fine film, wasn't for me, but it just feels like I'm seeing the same types of movies over and over.
And like this movie, so like I realized, okay, it's got Annabelle in it, which first appeared in the Conjuring films, and it was like a big part of those, and there's like the spin-off movie. But for a second, I was like, I kind of really wasn't thinking about the interconnectedness to those other movies existing. I was kind of just thinking on the terms of its own movie. And then there is like a little bit of like nudge and wink towards the upcoming Nun film and The Conjuring 2. Yeah. So there's a little bit of stuff.
Marvel Universe.
There's a little bit of stuff where it's like these interconnected Wannaverse of James Wan films like Annabelle and all this stuff, and the Warrenverse, I guess. But so those elements like didn't really distract me too much. I just realized like, oh, they're laying some seed. They're planting some seeds here. They're gonna grow into trees.
Yeah, and then it just felt like the same flavor too. Like one, that's a little distracting when they point that out.
Yeah,
but for me, it's like boring because it's no longer interesting. And like that's what I love about horror is just seeing different types of stories told. And it's no longer interesting when they all feel like the next one. You could take a scene out of one film and put it in another, and it's like interchangeable. Aside from maybe the gimmick of whatever the bad thing is, you know what I mean? Like
it's an evil doll or a spirit.
Yeah,
or whatever.
and I've seen enough of those now. And
to be fair, though, even though this movie is centered on an evil doll, there was no evil doll in the movie.
doll itself. So something that like I have not seen the first Annabelle film, so you can take all that with the, like other grain of salt. But like something this movie and The Conjuring and all of them haven't done is they've never gone full child's play and shown the doll walking around doing stuff. Like they'll be blurred out in the background, like in the background of a scene doing something maybe, but you never actually see full on the doll walking around doing stuff, touching stuff, hitting people. It doesn't go full child's play and have it running around with a knife in its hand, because I think that visual, once you actually see it, kind of makes it more ridiculous.
Which is a smart move on their case on how they handled this film.
Implying that it's happening is far scarier than it actually happening.
They don't even imply that it happens because it doesn't happen.
Well, there is like one time it implies that it's moving around the room.
I saw it in the background.
No, it wasn't.
It was.
I saw it
wasn't
walking.
the doll. It wasn't the doll.
It was the same color of dress and hair,
And it was in the same position that the doll was in.
It wasn't the doll.
But
We're getting into spoiler territory.
we'll hold everything for spoilers. It's just like the movie as a whole, like I said, I think it's effectively done at what it does. It's just the story doesn't break any new ground.
No.
And
Well, there's not much story. There's like legitimately like 30 minutes of the movie that has no story.
So I guess we can kind of get into giving our reviews and move into spoilers. So if you had to give this a score out of 10, what would you give it, Derek?
6.
All right. So Sean, what would you give it?
I might give it a 7, but I don't really ever care to watch it again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
This is a very fleeting experience.
yeah,
So-
I think it's fine,
It's
but
fleeting fun.
So I think like
I was not engaged in the story.
I think that I would
and that's-
feel similar-ish to this as to how I did Lights Out, in that like a 7 or 7.5, like that.
But I think this is less offensive than that. Like, I think this is a better film.
This
but
is a
not,
better
but
film.
not a much higher.
well,
No.
like setting it in the time period, setting it and like making it a period film where it's not set in current day, lets them get out of the trappings of the kind of generic 90s white isms that were plaguing, or the 2000 isms that were plaguing Lights Out, which is probably more on the casting department and props and stuff like that. Maybe, I don't know. But like this movie being set as a period piece kind of gets rid of those concerns and it's more period appropriate. And there's a lot of cool stuff. Like you see a lot of stuff in the movie. There's like a scarecrow that's in there that
A
like is
little
kind of
spoilers, I think.
No, I'm just saying, like in the movie,
Yeah.
you see a bunch of stuff around this house that's like, oh, what's going to happen?
And for
with
some
it?
reason,
yeah.
there's a bunch of dildos in the background too, and they never really elaborate on
Well,
that.
just like it's a house, like this farmhouse on
That's
the
why
side.
the mom's bedridden.
There's like, so there's stuff.
talk about that.
Yeah, so they're not even getting spoilers. Just like there's a lot of stuff they set up, and then you wonder what's going to be what. Like, is this part of the scare, or is it just like background dressing? And then you have to kind of figure that out throughout the movie, which is kind of cool. But in terms of like the actual scares and all that stuff, like I said, they're well done. It's just the story itself left me like not offended. I still like didn't walk out and hate it. I was just like, oh, that was a movie that I watched, and I would recommend that to people who like those types of films.
Yeah.
And the general audiences who go and see horror would probably enjoy it. The hardcore fans who are looking for some very specific things that aren't that, like, because Julie like asked me, like, she was wondering if she should go or not, and then she decided she didn't want to see it. And because like she's mentioned before, like she covers her eyes and gets actually like, creeped out by stuff. But like she told me that she thought it looked dumb, but it looked like it'd be scary too.
I can't tell, like, because I don't like love The Conjuring. I think those are well made movies. I don't really like the Warren. Like the Warrens are okay in them. You know, like I've never been.
I found them much more engaging in the first Conjuring than in the sequel.
Yeah, so those films are fine to me, and I enjoyed it okay, but they're nothing at all like like a horror classic to where I want to revisit.
It's
This
not
is not The Shining.
So
It's not The Exorcist.
So
it's not
it's
The
hard to
Shining.
gauge, but I guess if you really love The Conjuring, maybe you'll love this. But some people love The Conjuring because they love the Warrens, and they like how their
Because like
relationship is in
Annabelle's
those
been
films.
getting good, mostly positive
It's got a
reviews.
68% on Rotten Tomatoes. Right?
And it started out like having really high reviews. So we've given our reviews of it. So
What did you
basically,
give it, William?
I gave it a 7. So
Yeah.
basically, we all liked the execution, thought it was well done, but didn't necessarily like the story as much. But if you're
I just don't think it appeals to us, like personally. But
But if you if you enjoy The Conjuring, those other films,
But-
then it's definitely in line with those.
I can get into why it doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah.
When we get into
So
spoilers.
all that. So if you're listening via iTunes, just a huge favor, leave a review that helps other people find the podcast. You can always send us emails at podcast@housebyvideostore.com with any comments, suggestions, or anything like that. You can always follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and did I say Instagram already? I think I did. You can find all those at housebyvideostore.com. Just make sure to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram for sure, and then Twitter, but those are the main platforms. If you'll find us on the internet specifically, you can find me on Twitter at Will_Droid.
You'll find me pretty much on everything at Meta World Derek.
And I'm at Blevin Sean on Twitter.
And make sure, too, to follow our Instagram feed. It's HBTVS_official because we post pictures there each week, and I'm trying to do more stories as we work on shorts or other projects. Because we had the one short we shot a few weeks ago that's, being worked on now, and there's another small one that might be done in the next month or so. So keep an eye out there to see stuff like that. But now we can move into spoilers for Annabelle Creation. So if you haven't seen the movie, you can check out now because we're going to go full spoilers. And now we can start with discussing spoilers. So what was the moment that killed it for you, Derek?
All right, it's the moment where after the main girl for the first half of the movie falls, like she gets thrown off the banister. She is in the wheelchair, and the nun brings her out and sits her there. And she rolls into the barn.
Yeah.
And then she ends up underneath of something, and a little girl runs over and
Vomits
pukes into her
black
mouth. And
bile.
And it's like, come on, guys. We've been doing this for how many years have we done
another
that?
thing, so Ouija Origin of Evil had the same young actress, a different actress than that specific
Yeah.
scene you're talking about, but the actress who's in both movies. In Ouija Origin of Evil, there's a scene where some like ghostly apparition thing goes in her mouth, and her jaw opens up wide, and her mouth opens up wide. So what is it with these fucking movies and people having stuff go in their mouth, especially young girls? Like the
I
imagery.
just get so tired of it.
So when we were making the thumbnail image for our Ouija Origin of Evil podcast review last year, I thought it'd be kind of funny. Like one of the stills from the movie that was shared around a lot was the girl when her mouth is open super wide. And I thought it'd be funny to show, like, making it look like our podcast logo is coming out of her mouth. And I was like, wait a minute, that's kind of phallic and gross, so we're not going to do that because that could possibly be taken the wrong way.
Yeah.
But then these movies alone have all these people, like, open their mouths wide and stuff going in them. And especially when it's young girls, like, I don't understand why that's a trope. Is it scary to people?
Like, I just don't get it, because how many movies have you seen that deal with possession
Well,
where that happens?
How many like shitty covers for low budget horror films you see on Netflix where there's like a character with their mouth and jaw dislodged and
Yeah.
open wide? It's very prevalent.
You get to that moment in the movie, and I guess this is, to me, that starts the third act of the movie, I would think, wouldn't you say? From the point that
Well, it
that
starts
girl
where
is
there's consequences to actions and people can be hurt.
Yeah,
That's
but
another thing too. Like 20 minutes in this film, I didn't know where the story was going. Like,
Yeah.
you don't know where the story's going almost until like a little bit before
Well, there
that
kind
point.
of is
And
no story for a
there
while.
really
I'm saying it takes a
isn't.
long
Yeah.
time for it to like get to the point after those scares.
Yeah.
Because it's
Because-
mostly just characters exploring the environment and trying to figure stuff
And
out.
getting scared.
And
But-
there's not much of a overriding narrative till the
the
last.
stuff that doesn't make any sense is, okay, so they're in there and they find the girl's bedroom like almost immediately when they go in the house. The one dude's like, don't go in there. So they don't. But then like 20 minutes later in the movie, or maybe 5 minutes later, you see the girl behind her when she's looking out the window, and then gives her her crutch.
Or just knocks on the floor, I think.
Yeah, so the ghost is already out in the house doing stuff, but hasn't been released yet. And that's one thing I didn't really understand. It's like, so why do you even need to be released if you can go out the house and do stuff already anyway?
Well, is it where the spirit can kind of is so like just spitballing here? Maybe the screenwriting idea was that the spirit can kind of try to influence people to do stuff up until a certain point, and once the person actually does it, then it unleashes the full wrath of it to
Yeah.
go out in the world. Maybe that's what was happening, because after the door is open, the doll is actually able to get out. Then that's when like the spirit, the kind of black demon, becomes apparent.
yeah.
And you do the thing too where you kind of changed your protagonist, like
Did that
at
work
a
for
certain
y'all?
point in the movie.
Yeah, I like that.
See,
To me, like you built the character up with the character you were following, the girl that had polio was in the wheelchair and stuff. So it automatically makes her a relatable character because she has like to deal with, a situation that's not.
she's the
preferable.
deeper character out of the
And,
gate.
and then it
Yeah.
kind of switches from her to the other young girl that was also in Ouija, and it's like she was good enough, but it's just you built all this emotional. You had this emotional attachment. You build up in this one character, then you switch. I mean that happens in a lot of movies where it works to different extents, but it's just
It's probably important.
It changed the stakes, though.
It did, but it worked for me because it made things more interesting. Because you're like, okay, cool, like there's some consequences maybe here. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
then you can see that people can start getting injured.
yeah, and it can
killed.
be anybody. And you know, major spoilers. The end of the film, I guess you find out that she's a little girl that has the doll in the first Annabelle movie.
Yeah.
So like I think that's kind of cool, like story building for that universe. That now we got a strong backstory, and she wasn't like a secondary character or just this mysterious character.
Yeah.
I don't know if it needed that. I don't know what.
See,
a lot of people in the theaters though really love that. I heard them go like,
because I think Ouija Origin of Evil was one too, where the character we saw in the sequel prequel was a character that was a bigger role in the first Ouija
Yeah.
film, which we didn't see. So there's maybe stuff that's lost on us because we didn't see these original spin-off films. I mean, they should operate independent of those
and
elements.
that's how I try to think
So I
of
think
it.
that like as it worked, I think like so all the stuff after kind of the ending of the film where the priest comes to the house at the end and says that the spirit is gone and who wants the doll, like so that point forward, like when it goes to like the scene that's set like in the like 10 years in the future or whatever, and you see the Annabelle girl like kill her parents or whatever,
I don't think that was needed.
like that was just I think more service to the first movie maybe, which we didn't
Yeah.
see. And then the mid-credit stinger is the Annabelle doll looking at camera and then eventually tilting the head some. So there's one after that.
What? Yeah, there's one after that.
So-
it's just a teaser for the nun.
Oh.
Like it literally, it was the screen was so dark I couldn't even see her, but it's like just a church, the inside of a church, I think, or a hallway or something. I don't know. It looked like a really small church. Maybe it said in Spain. I don't know where it said.
Yeah.
But then it's like total darkness, and then I think you start to see her face come out, and that's it. Like
So
it's
the
not a big
nun-
deal, but
Well, like getting back to where you hit the protagonist change, like to me, the reason why a lot of horror movies work, when we talked about this in the past, is you have some type of emotional investment in a character, and when you switch out the protagonist with a less developed one that you don't care as much for, because you got to figure most of the movie up until that point was centered on.
Well, there's
one
movies that
character.
like so Evil Dead did that. I mean, granted, it's Bruce Campbell, and you knew like I'd seen it, being aware of him to some extent, so it made sense that he was the protagonist.
But at least this girl was involved in the story up to that point, though,
Yeah, a
and I
little bit.
and I liked her a lot. Like because she was a younger character.
The two
you know.
characters were like they were best friends and they were attached, so it made sense that they were the ones being the main driving force versus any of the other girls.
There's another movie I saw like that too, where the best friend ended up,
Yeah, I mean it's been done
Yeah.
before, and then like I still think that like a lot of the set piece stuff, like the Scarecrow,
Is
like
awesome,
I
I
like
think.
because the Scarecrow itself was never actually what was scaring anybody. It was just the spirit was using it to kind of creep him out, and then
Yeah.
what was actually attacking her was like the demon or the girl spirit. But the Scarecrow stuff, just hinting at it being something, was to me more.
Yeah, I
effective
wanted
than
the
actually showing
Scarecrow
it.
movie after I saw that. I'm like, I want to, like the scene when they're trying to start the car.
Yeah.
that was killer. That was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that
all
was
those-
inside there when she's staring at it and the axe. Like,
Yeah.
if that thing was going to jump off the wall and start running at it, like
Yeah.
like I think all
Felt
that
like a haunted house.
Yeah, all that stuff was awesome.
And then when she pulled the axe to try and get out of the block of wood, and the axe handle came out of the blade, so that was cool.
yeah, if the characters had been developed a little bit more, you know what I mean? That like all those moments would have been even
Well, and two,
better.
something to me was like the girl, and I'm forgetting the character names because it was kind of easy to
Doesn't
forget.
matter.
But the girl that was in the barn, she looked like she was 20 or something.
She
I looked her up
is,
and she was like
yeah.
21 or something.
No, she's 24.
Or whatever it was. She was old enough to not be living in an orphanage anymore.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, that you can give or take on that stuff because people play different ages all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I guess theoretically about it, she was like 16 or something.
The time, the world was rougher back then. People aged a lot more. She might have been like 12. She just,
Yeah, like
and hitting the bourbon.
I just like you look at and like, going back to the parents, like the people
Well,
that
when
were
the
hosting-
mom got cut in half, that was almost like a Silent Hill.
Well,
maybe that was a little bit of the rated R.
Well, and the thing I like about that is like that didn't make it doesn't the way those parents died.
Well, the parents went from being upbeat and cheerful in the opening segment in the past to
Yeah.
being very dour and negative, but you never really saw. You only heard a little bit of backstory that explained
Yeah.
it. Having more stuff, like you said, Sean said, from their perspective, maybe of like, were they trying to regain the feeling they lost from losing their daughter with the new girls they brought in from the orphanage? Like,
Yeah.
that could have been a different angle.
Like, I
but-
think it would have been cool to have this setup where, okay, all this stuff they told in the backstory, show a little bit of that, and then they have the girls in, and then they're, and then the girls start getting scared, and then all of a sudden they're freaking out, like, oh God, we know where this is going to go. And then you, audience, would know where it's going to go. They would, and then so you're with them while they're trying to protect these
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
Like,
And to
I
me,
think
that
that's what
makes-
I would
yeah.
have.
they
It would have
did
been
not
more
go in that
engaging to
direction,
me.
but
Yeah, and it just a lot of it to me the better story was just when the mom was telling them about how she lost her eye. Like, and there's like to me that was
Well, yeah,
the
'cause
more interesting story.
Yeah, immediately was like, oh, this is good because
Yeah.
it's a mother.
because they
daughter,
wanted
like,
they basically like prayed or whatever for anything that could possibly bring their daughter back to them to do it.
Yeah.
And then their daughter came back to him, but it was just an evil spirit that was a demon. It wasn't really her.
Yeah.
And it wanted like they still thought it was her daughter. She wanted to go into the doll. And they said, okay, but it really wasn't her. It was an evil spirit. And that's what caused all the stuff to happen and why the mom got her eye ripped out and her face shredded up. And then she had like the kind of half like doll face, almost Phantom of the
But
Opera type
it
mask.
doesn't make any sense why she was bedridden because all she did was get
face was
attacked in her
hurt,
face.
but-
So I was like, what?
I was wondering also too, is this film saying that if you pray that possibly demons will come into your
Well, I think the idea, like on a lot of those movies, is that if you reach, like, if a spirit's reaching out to you,
Insidious
it
3.
may not be like the Insidious, like chapters, 1, 2, and 3. The spirit that you think is reaching out to you may not be the one you think.
Well,
But those are Blumhouse. That's the Blumhouse.
Yeah.
world.
But it's still the Wannaverse. So, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess like we can wrap up our discussion because we like unless there's any other thing we want to talk about from spoilers. But,
I mean, I don't know. I guess
So the vomiting mouth is where you turn.
that's to me where it's like
to me, that's a
okay, it's
cliche
little
moment. And I'm
schlocky.
tired of seeing stuff
Yeah.
vomiting in people's mouth.
There's a lot more interesting things you can do, and I'm not saying I'm suggesting any. It's just the imagination can come up with more stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I hate to just always bring it up, but like Twin Peaks: The Return this season, they
doing
just
the
do whatever
opposite.
they want, and they figure out a way to make it work.
doing-
It's
I mean-
totally new stuff, and it's like, wow, this works.
So on this movie, somebody got vomit in their mouth. On Twin Peaks: The Return, there's like a weird half amphibian, half bug that's the size of like a frog that crawls in a girl's mouth, and it's creepy as hell.
yeah, but maybe the different audiences. You know what I mean? Maybe the audiences for these jump scare films, there's like,
Yeah.
no, we want the simple vomit in mouth. I get that. I've seen it before. It seems real to me. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's
Well, it's kind of
established thing that they can accept.
So without casting judgment, it's like when someone goes on vacation and they bypass the regional local restaurant for the chain restaurant, they know what they're going to get.
Yeah.
Because they know what they want and they know they can get it here. This other thing may have what they want, but they don't know if they're going to like it.
Yeah.
So that's the type of thing with that. So
Take
so-
risk. Take a little.
Yes.
The rest of the movie was so good. It's after that. To me, it's like okay. I know
The
where
stuff
this is
after
going.
that was all super effectively done. It's just I wasn't super bought into the characters.
What about the
but-
basement scene? Where for some reason the torn half mom was in the basement without her eye messed up.
Oh yeah, I kind of remember that.
Well, then too, there was also the stuff like the earlier scene where the two older girls were under the sheet with the light, and it looked like the mom was the one that pulled it off. So is a spirit just taking the form of anything that might scare everybody and to get them trying worked up, or
I see that was never fully explained.
not really explained, but just more of just scare moments that were just there. But yes, I think that'll wrap up our discussion of Annabelle creation. So that'll bring this episode of the House by Video Store podcast to a close. Thanks for listening.
House by the video